Okay,
Hi.
so we should be live now. It says
Yes,
we're live.
we are. Yes.
Apologies to anyone who was waiting. Great. Yep, there we are. Clicking go live on Instagram. Okay, great. We're going. So, yes, apologies to anyone who was waiting. We had some technical difficulties, but we're good now. We are streaming live to Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And if you have questions for us, feel free to leave them in the comment on whatever video you're watching, and we will see them and respond to them. So my name is Eve Rickert. I'm the publisher of Thornapple Press. I'm here with Zara Shah, who is the author of the book Nonmonogamy and Sex Work. And first, I just want to start with a land acknowledgement. Again, I'm Eve. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an 8th generation settler of German and Scottish ancestry who has the privilege of living on the unceded ancestral territories of the Osanich and Lekwungen peoples. I'm also joining today from these lands. I want to recognize that colonization and associated attitudes, policies, and institutions have significantly changed Indigenous peoples' relationship with their relations and with the land. And to recognize that compulsory monogamy and heteronormativity were part of these policies, and they impacted not only Indigenous peoples, but also those with non-monogamous traditions coming from other parts of the world, including those who were brought here as enslaved people. I'm committed to participating in reconciliation and to decolonizing my thinking and my relationships. And I do this through ongoing learning and practice. One thing I'm doing is making direct reparations to the original stewards of the lands I live and work on through payments to the South Island Reciprocity Trust. And Zara Shah, and actually, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
You are.
Great. Oh, good. I realized I should have confirmed that with you before we started. Is an Ontario-based writer who has a BA in sociology and has worked in public relations. In 2008, she immigrated from Pakistan and uses writing as a tool to bridge the gap between Pakistani and Canadian culture and to highlight the immigrant experience. And she's the author of this new book from Thornapple Press, which pubs next week, Nonmonogamy and Sex Work, which is also the latest in the More Than Two Essentials series. So thank you for this book and welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to actually put my voice, in a medium to make it more real. Like, it's one thing to have all those thoughts and experiences, and it's another to be able to actually put it out there for people to see who are actually interested in your story. So thank you for that opportunity.
Well, I'm so glad to have your contribution to this series as well. I've been really excited about this book coming out. So it's also, I think, probably my favorite cover in the series so far.
Oh yeah, I love that cover. I absolutely there was just no question when you sent me the options. I was like, that is the one. That's the one that just there was no doubt.
Great. So tell me about first of all, your inspiration for this book and what readers can expect when they pick it up.
My inspiration for this book will have to be intersectionality. And this is an intersectional issue that has not been discovered or examined all that much, the intersection between non-monogamy and sex work. And I think that when readers pick it up, they can expect to see the connection between the two, but they can also expect to see how non-monogamy can actually help facilitate sex work as well, and it can actually escalate your success as a sex worker. They can learn from this book how to be supportive towards sex workers who are in non-monogamous relationships, and they can see the connection between not only sex work and non-monogamy itself, and how the two can completely jive so well together, but they will also be able to see some connection to race as well, like what it is like to be an immigrant who discovered non-monogamy, who discovered her sexuality, and eventually landed into sex work and was successful at that. So that is an experience that they can learn about from this book.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what some of your biggest challenges as a non-monogamous sex worker have been, both yours and if you want to talk about anything else that you've sort of seen in your community or in terms of challenges around that?
So I will have to say one of the biggest challenges on some level, um, it's the kind of challenge that you can ignore if you want to, but it's kind of always there. And it's just the challenge of constantly knowing that you are kind of an outcast in society. You are, everything about you is kind of a secret, it's kind of a stigma, it's kind of a taboo. And just that feeling of, okay, yes, everything about me and my life and my work and my relationship is kind of stigmatized. But beyond that, how do I just learn to, even with, in spite all of that, even in spite everything that society thinks or says, how do you accept yourself, your relationship, your life, your work? Um, being able, sometimes I myself, because of how we are all raised and how these messages are instilled into us, I will find myself still wondering you that, like, is this like legit? Is non I mean, I know that it is completely legit. I've been in a non-monogamous relationship for almost 10 years and I know it is, but you still find yourself thinking, despite all that, that, oh, is this actually, you know, am I doing it wrong? Am I wrong in all this? And uh, is sex work really work? So these are questions that they don't come up as much the further you go, the more you accept yourself. But these are questions that pop up, kind of sporadically from time to time. Even when you know the answer, they pop up. And it's that uh, because you're having to constantly answer these questions and you're constantly having to reinvent yourself and reassert yourself, your work, your relationship, and reassert that your love, your life, and your work is all completely real and legit. That in itself can be a challenge, even if you don't feel like you have to justify it to other people. Sometimes you feel like you're having to do it, having to justify it to yourself.
What have you found that's been helpful for that? Have you do you feel like you've found your way through that, or does it still come up for you?
I I have found my way as far as non-monogamy goes. I have been, yeah, like I'm like, in fact, because I am surrounded by friends in a community that is like that, it becomes less stigmatized. But as far as sex work goes, that is not an experience that I share with most of my community or most of my friends. I mean, yes, there are sex workers that are in my friend circle, but there are very few and far in between. And so most of my close friend circle is still, even though they're accepting of who I am and my work, um, I don't think they fully grasp what it is to be a sex worker, what it is to put yourself out there, what it is to constantly be treating that line of, you know, trying to, you're basically kind of always trying to treat this line between trying to make boundaries for yourself and also being the product to consume. And there's just so many layers to it that I think a lot of people who haven't had my experience will understand. And that does sometimes make it hard to fully, because it's not, it is a taboo kind of work, and it is a niche community. Sometimes it is hard for me still to normalize it for myself. Maybe it's, yeah, it's not, I mean, I can't, no matter how successful I am, right? No matter how successful I become in it, it's not like I can talk about it at Thanksgiving dinner or anything like that. Like, I can't. Um, and if I, even though I know my friends are accepting of me, I'm not sure that I can actually be like, oh, I'm so successful. I've been so successful at it. I can't just talk about it like everyday work. So
Do you think
even,
you'll share this book with them?
oh yes, I will. And even as I share it with them, I think, you know, like, do they want to know? I don't know. Well, but
Yeah.
I will share it with them. I mean, I'm out about it mostly. I'm like, I'm in that place where I'm half out and half not out. So it's like close friends know, like, and people in my circle or on my Facebook largely do know. Family, however, family friends and stuff, they have no idea about any of it. Um, my partner's friends or even some of my friends have. So it's like, and I'm also in that place where I'm half out, half not. So I have one foot in one place and another foot in another place. And that is also a challenge.
Is that true of both sex work and non-monogamy, or do you think you're out more about non-monogamy than about sex work?
I'm more not out about non-monogamy, yes. I'm less
Yeah.
so about sex work, yes. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, so it sounds like even your non-monogamous friends, you sometimes feel like you have a hard time talking with them about sex work. So
Yeah.
what's your impression of the the non-monogamous community that you found so far in terms of their openness or understanding to sex work?
They are open, but I don't know if, and they say that sex work is work, but I don't know if they fully and truly believe it. Maybe it just sounds like I'm being kind of like trying to be a mind reader here. I'm not, and I'm not trying to fault my friends or put them on the spot or like badmouth them or anything. This is not really about that. It's more just that I I don't I think a lot I think that they are open to it, but I don't think they're necessarily appreciative of the hard work that it is
Mhm.
to be in this industry. If
Do
that makes any
do you
sense.
wanna talk about Yeah, it does. Do you wanna talk about that a little bit, just the work involved?
Yes, yes. So both on an emotional and physical level, it can be extremely taxing. And it can also, I find myself having to constantly defend myself, my body type, who I am,
Mm,
to these random men who, well, I know that I'm the product. And so because I am the product when I'm selling my adult content, I am the product. Now I realize that, but that also means because they see me as the product, they can come at me with criticism because I am, after
mhm.
all, the product. Sorry, I'm repeating myself with that. But
It's okay.
so it's, I find myself not only having to fight back people like that who delegitimize my looks or my body type or something about me that they don't like. And sometimes it does come down to racism. They don't like the color of my skin. And I'm having to constantly defend myself against people like that. But I'm also having to constantly reassert my own self-confidence consistently. That's like everyday work is not just about promoting your adult content to others. It's also about ha- having a kind of mustering a fierce kind of self-confidence for yourself every day so that you can shield yourself from the kind of criticism that comes at you. And that is emotionally taxing. That's emotional work right there. That's a lot of mental work, emotional work. It's work I've been able to do in therapy to try to find my own self-confidence. So there is that. And then there's the physical aspects of these work, which is just coming in, making that content, making all kinds of content, doing all sorts of sexual positions and posing this way and that way, and that can be extremely exhausting. I mean, there's filming that I've done that has resulted in me being like just feeling kind of broken in my body for days. And that's emotional, like that's physical work. So it's both emotional and physical, and sometimes also mental. And it really, really requires that you just, no matter what happens, you hold your self-confidence in your hands. And it's a lot. And
There's also, oh,
oh,
well, I was
no.
just going to say that, like, I'm continually impressed by how much just business work there is as well, and admin work, and all of the marketing and this, the screening and the bookkeeping, and if there are legal issues that you have to deal with, and then trying to stay abreast of the continual attempts to, restrict and censor sex work and things like that. It just seems like that element of it is so much work, and seems like you have to be quite savvy to be able to do that.
Oh my God. Now that you mention it,
Sorry if that was
that is
if I
so
shouldn't have brought it
true.
up, but that was what I was thinking when you were talking about, the how much work it is, was that sort of invisible piece of it that I think a lot of non-sex workers don't realize is there.
Oh no, they do not. See, like I'm the product, I'm the producer, I'm the director, and the editor, and the person who replies back to emails and messages, the marketer, the PR person, the social media person. I'm all of the things. People look at sex work, say it's not real work. Well, I'm doing like multiple jobs.
Yeah.
But yes, so and even people in my circle who are otherwise very accepting and embracing of me and who I am, I'm grateful to have a circle where I don't have to hide myself so much. But I think some people still have the concept that it's all about, playing with a dildo when posting that. It's not. It's so much more. It's so much more. And
Yeah.
definitely, if I weren't in a non-monogamous relationship, I don't think I would have a partner who would be as supportive of this work. Because once non-monogamy sort of allowed me to get into this work, because when you're non-monogamous, when you become non-monogamous, you see sexuality in a completely different way. It's no longer this um, a sacred thing to be shared with one person, your body or your sexuality. Non-monogamy makes it so your sexuality and your body are truly yours. And the person you are in a non-monogamous relationship is more likely, well, hopefully, to see it that way too. So there are never any, I mean, I've had monogamous people in my life, especially other monogamous men who've been like, how does your boyfriend even do that? Does he not get jealous and all that? Like, what kind of a guy is that? He's not, well, yeah. I mean, the nature of a relationship is completely different. And I am grateful for it. I'm grateful to not have the kind of partner who tries to control me in that way. I mean, he's supportive of anything. He helps me make content, participates in the content. Like whenever I'm having issues where it feels like I'm not being able to get as many customers or buyers, he gives me idea. So a non-monogamous relationship with that kind of trust that I share with my partner, it can be an asset to to doing sex work in that way. Yeah.
Going back to the community question,
Mhm.
are there ways that you think that non-monogamous communities could be more welcoming to or safer for sex workers?
Yes. I think that for starters, a non-monogamous communities, I would say, are more of a safe space for sex workers than a community that is very emphasizing of monogamy. And um, but I will say that non-monogamous communities also, I've I've come across people, non-monogamous couples, who sometimes have viewed sex workers or like whether it was an escort or strippers or any other kind of sex worker as something to spice up their relationship with. And to each their own, but I think that to view sex workers in that kind of way as like a kind of a safe harbor for your relationship or the thing that will keep your relationship spicy and alive, it doesn't necessarily sit right with me. So when I come across couples like that, I'm very, very around them because I don't want to be involved with that kind of thing. And they,
So, are you talking about people who don't want to hire you as a like don't want to be a client, but actually want to be involved with you, like as a unicorn kind of situation?
yeah,
I
that
see. Yeah.
kind of, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like there are non-monogamous people, and despite, and I think nobody is really, you know, prone to this kind of thinking, but people, non-monogamous or monogamous, thinking that sex workers would be up for anything,
Yeah.
and just assuming that, like,
So sort of fetishizing you a little bit
yes,
rather
yes,
than seeing this as your job that you do.
exactly. And that is something
Yeah.
non-monogamous people and monogamous people are guilty of, like almost
Mhm.
equally across the board. Yeah, the
Yeah.
fetishizing
That
of
makes a
it.
lot of sense.
Yeah, and that's something that non-monogamous communities can work on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I think you kind of addressed this, but I was curious if you could talk more about which came first for you, and did one lead to another, the non-monogamy and the sex work?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Non-monogamy definitely came first, and I think without it, personally for myself, I mean, I know other sex workers who are in monogamous relationship, but even in that relationship, say, like I'm not in a monogamous relationship, but even sex workers I know who are, even in that relationship, their partner has to be willing to be a little more flexible in their view of
Mhm.
sexuality. And in my case, non-monogamy kind of like was that, I don't know what the right word for that is, but it was like kind of, it was almost, it made it safer, it made it a more um, legit sort of option for me to get into sex
Mhm.
work, being in a non-monogamous relationship, because the question of whether or not uh, my body belongs to me or it belongs to whoever I am with was already out of the way. I mean, when you're non-monogamous, one of the principal tenets that you do believe in is that everybody's sexuality is their own to do with as they please. So that, because I was in a non-monogamous relationship, was a question that I didn't have to worry about or fussed about. Like it was So the option was not even really a question or something to discuss a whole lot with my partner to convince him one way or another or anything, because
Yeah.
for years he had acknowledged my body as being my own and to do with as I please. So it wasn't even really a question. And
Yeah. I'm not sure that all non-monogamous folks share that view, but it certainly probably is a lot more prevalent.
yeah, no,
There's
you.
just as it's just as common to see control and entitlement and things, but yeah,
Oh, yeah,
it's nice when you find the pockets that don't operate that way.
there absolutely is. In fact, I've had a friend whose partner, well, it was a non-monogamous relationship in the most technical sense of the word, but the guy was someone who's like, "Oh, only my dick, and you can be with other women." So
Mhm.
when he started sex work, he was very controlling. So
Mm.
you're correct. I mean, I think that there are non-monogamous people who go into it and they work on themselves and they work on their views and do all of that as they progress with their relationships, and then some who don't do any of that at all. For them
Mhm.
it's just about sex itself, and like there are so many other things to non-monogamy than sex. And I think that sometimes uh, that there are people in non-monogamous relationships who don't necessarily do the emotional work on themselves that non-monogamy would require, because it would
Mm.
mean working on your jealousy, it would mean working on your insecurities, it would mean working on all of that, and that
Yeah.
isn't always the case. That is for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Coming back to this wonderful little book, do you have a favorite part of it, or anything that, like, any sort of highlight that you would love people to have as a takeaway?
Yes, my favorite part of it, I have a few, but I think one of my favorite parts is where I go into talking about labor and work and what it means
Mhm.
to sell your body. And then I go into a discussion about how pretty much every labor that is extracted from us under capitalism is us selling our body. And
Mm.
that's something that is one of my favorite parts. And then also my my conversation about I also give advice on how to be successful at it if you're considering making an OnlyFans or being a cam girl or doing anything. If you're doing it on whether or not you're planning to do it on the side or as a full-time thing, I give some advice on how to be successful and how to do it well, and I go into long advice about how to ignore the trolls or just
Mhm.
like assert yourself and build your self-confidence. And the build your self-confidence almost sounds like uh kind of cliche, but in this case just the importance of doing all those things if you want to be good at it. And those are some of my favorite parts, the
Mm.
like sex work in the context of labor and capitalism, and then advice regarding sex work.
Um, what is one thing that you would like people to know about sex work and about non-monogamy?
Oh, hmm. There's so many things I wanted to know.
This
But
well, you can cheat and pick more than one, but
um, well, so with regards to non-monogamy, I want people to know that it's not as complicated as they think it is. Because the concept that you can love more than one person it's not just a concept, it's a reality. It's a reality that humans have experienced since love is, and sexuality existed. You love more than one person. You, in this case, is just more rooted in romance, but loving more than one person is not so complicated after all. And being sexually attracted to more than one person is also not so complicated because we all are. So the work required for making a non-monogamous relationship work and having that kind of level of trust is complicated, can be complicated, but it shouldn't be, but it is. And that's what I want people to know about non-monogamy. And with regards to sex work, I want people to know that um, this is not necessarily mentioned in my book, but even though people will tell you that they need a certain type of body type or age or skin color or race or anything, like people will tell you that these are the requirements somehow to be able to put your body out there, but it's a lie. That's not the case at all. So don't believe it. Don't believe people if they tell you that you need to be this type of body and this type of size and this type of age to do well in this industry. It's not true. You can be anyone from any background in life and any sexuality. You can be a trans person, and you can be you can be pretty much anything you want, and you can still be successful at this if you uh, if this is something you want to do. But also, yes, I also want them to know that sex work is really, 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 really hard work. It's really intense and laborious, and it's almost never easy. Like, it's not the easy money they think it is. It's very contradictory. The work is just full of contradictions. It's full of complications, and it's not easy money. If you think it's easy money, you haven't experienced how contradictory it actually can be.
So do you have either questions for me or final comments or anything that you wanted me to ask that I didn't or that you want to make sure to say?
Hmm. I will add. I will add some things. Yeah, I think I do have a few more things to add, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. I do think that being both non-monogamous and a sex worker, when you come from an immigrant Pakistani Muslim background like mine, is even that much harder. It requires you to be that much less. Um, it requires you to be. It basic. You're having to deal with more obstacles because your views are almost not understood in the community that you were born in. So on some level, abandoning those values can mean cutting off ties and doing that kind of thing, and that can be pretty difficult. And that is a that is an emotional part of it, like an emotionally painful part of it all as well. And I'm not saying that this is only true for Muslim backgrounds. This is probably true for any religious background and even probably non-religious backgrounds. No matter because non-monogamy and sex work are still stigmatized in non-religious communities. So it's and sometimes I think what I'm saying is that dealing with that stigma can be painful. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else before we start to wrap up? Any
No,
other
but
final thoughts or comments?
yeah. What made you interested in this kind of intersectionality, like between?
Um, it's something that we don't really see talked about. I mean, I know a lot of non-monogamous sex workers, and so I feel like it's an important, it's an important group of people within our communities, who I would like to see have more visibility and more of a voice. And I would like to see our communities be as safe and friendly as possible. And I mean, I liked your pitch, so I was interested in the things that you wanted to talk about. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Got it. Yeah.
So where else can people find you, find your work, your other writing, any public presences that you want to mention?
Oh, I do. It's only that a lot of the public presence are more related to sex work, and I don't know how
That's
many
yeah.
people. But
You don't
there
need to
is
mention anything if you don't want to, but we like to give people an opportunity to promote any other work that they have.
okay. Well, I I can be if you want to see my writings. Well, my writings are mostly. I mean, this is my first actual book, so there's
Mm,
that. And I sometimes write sort of like on my own time in my own journal, but I don't do like that much writing outside of my own very personal writing. But you can find me on Instagram if you want, or my Twitter is actually pretty available. It's but health. Sorry, it's
okay.
and so that's one of probably my biggest presences, Twitter
That's
as
your
well.
Instagram. We can tag that in the comments of the Instagram live as well. So
Okay, and my Twitter, if you want it, is just but health. So
is that Buttells? Did I get that right?
and those are my biggest sort of presence on the internet.
Okay, great. And you can find the book, Non-Monogamy and Sex Work, wherever you buy books. We do. Sorry, I'm trying to get this in the screen without like covering my face, but it's not working. We do love for people to buy from their local independent bookstores. If you go to thornapplepress.ca, there are links to where you can buy it from indies, or you can just ask your bookstore.
Awesome. Yeah. Yes, please buy the book. It took me a lot of, I had to I it was a treat. Writing that was a really great experience because on some level writing it actually required me to re-examine my own sort of experiences and how they came to be what they are and how it all began and where I'm at in life right now. So it it was it was a really good experience to just write that and put that
I'm
somewhere
glad to hear that.
because I haven't had a place to put all those heavy thoughts
Mm,
anywhere. And this was the first time I actually got to have a place to put it all in. So
great. Well, I'm so glad that you did. So thank you so much.
thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for joining us. It was lovely talking to you.
Thank,
And yeah, we're going to sign off, everyone. Thanks to everyone who joined. Bye
thank
bye.
you. Thank you. Have a good day.